I'm going to start from the beginning. I met Ikechukwu Ogbonna when he was going through a lot of emotional drama in his life. I have never known him before. I have never seen him. I've never even heard of him before until the pass of his late wife. After the interview I granted with Daddy Freeze, that was misunderstood and went viral.
All right, so we're back, and you know what that means. It's time for another deep dive, and this time, we're diving into Nigerian celebrity news. Specifically, all the buzz surrounding Blessing CEO and IVD.
Ah, yes. Their relationship's been making, well, let's just say it's been making a lot of headlines. And they're not all positive.
Definitely not.
No.
And to get into it, we're going to be taking a look at, Blessing CEO's recent interview.
Yeah, saw that.
She tackles some of the rumors head on.
She does, yeah. It's a complicated situation. There are a lot of layers here. I guess to, quickly recap, for everyone, Blessing CEO is, she's a relationship expert.
Right.
She's well known for giving advice online and in the media. IVD, on the other hand, he's a prominent Lagos-based car dealer. He's been facing some serious allegations following the death of his wife. And now, Blessing CEO has not only confirmed their relationship, but she's also defending IVD's character very publicly.
Yeah, that's what's really interesting about this interview, right? She just comes right out and acknowledges the relationship.
Yeah.
Even using, terms of endearment like Boo Boo and G for IVD, but then goes on to describe him as a gentleman, one of the sweetest people she knows.
Yeah.
Which, paints a very different picture than what we've been seeing in the news.
It really does. And that, I think, is what makes it so interesting. We're basically seeing two completely different narratives play out. There's the one in the media, which, as we said, is, it's filled with accusations, a lot of controversy. And then you have Blessing CEO's personal account, and it's painting a much more positive picture of IVD.
Yeah.
So it really raises the question, how much weight should we give to these personal testimonials versus public perception, especially when someone's reputation is on the line like this?
Absolutely. And it's not just that she's saying nice things about him, right? She's also talking about submitting to his authority in the relationship. She even shared a story about IVD telling her to stop shaking her ass on social media.
Oh, wow.
And that she listened, which is kind of wild, right?
Yeah.
Especially for someone who's known for being, so strong-willed.
Yeah, that is a really interesting detail. It definitely makes the whole picture a little more complex.
Yeah.
Because Blessing CEO she is known for her, bold personality, her outspoken views on relationships. And then here she is in this interview describing a dynamic where she's willingly taking a more submissive role. I mean, it kind of shows how these public personas don't always tell the full story, and how relationships especially can be much more nuanced than they initially appear.
Exactly. And speaking of nuances, I think it's time to address the elephant in the room. The rumors about IVD's HIV status.
Oh, right.
Blessing CEO addressed this directly in the interview. And her response, well, it was pretty firm. She completely denies the rumors, claims that IVD took her to multiple hospitals for testing.
Wow. Okay, so she's very adamant on that point.
Yeah.
I mean, and it is crucial because it is, it touches on such a sensitive topic. It's interesting, though, because she kind of implies that any previous claims about IVD's HIV status were probably made out of anger, maybe frustration. And it makes you think, doesn't it?
Yeah.
About the role that emotions play in all of this, especially in a situation like this where it's so public.
It's true. How much of this is driven by emotion and how much of it is,
Yeah.
And then it's also important, I think, that she emphasizes how IVD, barely falls sick and has blood type AA. It feels like she's really trying to build a case for his overall good health, right?
Yeah.
And to counter that negative narrative that's been out there.
It does, yeah.
Yeah.
It really does. But it also brings up another question, how much power does someone like Blessing CEO actually have to sway public opinion?
Yeah.
She's leveraging her platform here, her expertise as a relationship expert, to defend someone who's facing some serious allegations.
Right. And remember, IVD is still dealing with legal issues stemming from his wife's death, right?
Yeah.
So Blessing CEO's statements, they aren't happening in a vacuum.
They're not, no. There's a lot more at stake here than just, your typical celebrity gossip. Her public pronouncements, I mean, they could have real-world consequences for both IVD and for the ongoing legal proceedings.
It's almost like we're watching a PR campaign in action, in real time. Blessing CEO is using her platform, her expertise to try and shift the narrative, right?
Yeah.
About IVD.
Yeah. It is an interesting strategy, that's for sure. It really speaks to the power dynamics at play here, Because Blessing CEO, despite her saying she's submissive in their relationship, she's very much in control of this message she's putting out there.
Yep.
She's using her voice to try and reframe how people see IVD.
And it's a powerful voice. She's got a big following. People listen to her. In the interview, she even mentioned that she was IVD's therapist before they became romantically involved. Do you think that adds another layer of, I don't know, maybe credibility to her defense of him?
It's a significant detail, for sure. I mean, it suggests a level of intimacy and understanding that goes way beyond your typical romantic relationship.
Yeah.
It's almost as if she's saying, I know him better than anyone, and trust me, he's not this monster the media is making him out to be.
Yeah. It adds a whole other dimension to their dynamic, right? It also brings up some questions about ethics. Like, is it okay for her to use her platform, as this relationship expert to defend someone facing, serious allegations? Where's the line between personal and professional?
It's a very blurry line, for sure. And it's a line that I think is getting even blurrier now in the age of social media. I mean, we see it all the time. Influencers, public figures, they blur those lines between their personal lives and their professional personas constantly.
Yeah.
It makes it really hard to tell where the personal opinions stop and the professional endorsements begin.
Right. And then there's the question of motivation. We know Blessing CEO isn't afraid of controversy. Some might even say she, enjoys it. So what's her real motivation here? Is it just, pure love and concern for IVD, or is there something else? Is there an element of self-promotion?
Yeah, it's a valid question. It's impossible to know really what's in her heart, but we can look at her actions, what she's saying. And from that, we can try to analyze how those things might serve both her personal and her professional interests. This whole thing could be seen as like a master class in how to use social media, to shape a narrative, control your public image.
It's a captivating story, that much is certain. But it's also important to remember that at the center of it all, these are real people, real lives, and there are potentially very serious consequences.
That's a crucial point, yeah. It's easy to get caught up in all the drama and the intrigue, but we have to remember that these are real people whose lives are being deeply impacted by all of this.
Yeah.
And the court of public opinion, I mean, it could be swift and unforgiving, but the legal system, that operates on a completely different timeline, different standards of evidence.
So where do we go from here? What should we be watching for as the story develops?
Well, I think first and foremost, we just need to stay informed. It's a developing situation. It's got lots of moving parts. New information could come out at any time. And it's important to keep an open mind, avoid jumping to conclusions.
Be critical of the information that's coming out.
Exactly. We need to be discerning, especially in a situation like this.
Yeah.
As complex and as potentially volatile as it is.
So what are some key questions we should be asking ourselves as we continue to follow this story?
I think it's important to consider the source. Like, who's saying it? What are their motivations? What might their biases be?
So we're not just, passively taking all this in, we're actively engaging with it, right?
Exactly. It's about being an active participant in the information ecosystem, not just a passive recipient. You have to analyze it, form your own conclusions.
And I imagine it's also about separating facts from speculation.
Absolutely. In a situation like this, emotions run high. There's a lot at stake. So it's easy for rumors and conjecture to just spread like wildfire. We need to be careful about what we believe. Be willing to question the narratives that we're being presented with.
Yeah, it's almost like a masterclass in media literacy.
It really is.
This whole situation is a perfect example of why we need to be, savvy consumers of information, especially in the age of social media.
We are just bombarded with narratives from all sides, and it's our responsibility to sift through all the noise and figure out what's credible, what's relevant, what's actually worth our attention.
And sometimes the most captivating stories are the ones that leave us with more questions than answers.
Absolutely. And that's okay. Sometimes the most valuable thing you can gain from a situation like this isn't a definitive conclusion, but a deeper understanding of just how complex it all really is.
This whole situation, it really highlights how easy it is for narratives to shift, and how important it is for us to be aware of those shifts.
It does, yeah. It really does. We live in a world where information just travels so fast, and public opinion, I mean, that can change in an instant.
Mm-hmm.
This is a perfect example of why we need to be so careful.
Mm-hmm.
Approach all this information, especially when it's sensitive like this,
Yeah.
with a critical eye.
Yeah. And it's not just about, being critical of the information itself. It's also about understanding the context, right? Like blessing CEOs
Yeah.
statements, for example. They
Yeah.
they take on a whole different meaning when you consider her relationship with IVD, her role as this relationship expert, and then, you factor in the legal stuff that's going on in the background.
Exactly. We can't just look at these statements on their own.
Mhm.
They're part of this larger narrative, and that narrative's being shaped by so many different factors, and it's our job,
Yeah.
as informed individuals to try and piece it all together.
So to bring this all together for our listener, we have Blessing CEO, stepping in as this fierce defender of IVD, using her platform to challenge the narrative that's been circulating. We have IVD's legal situation, which is still, very much unfolding in the background. And then we have, we always have this ever-present influence of social media, right?
Well,
Amplifying everything. The good, the bad, the truth, the speculation.
Yeah, it's a lot to take in.
It really is. And it just underscores how important critical thinking is, questioning assumptions, recognizing that the truth is it's usually much more nuanced and multifaceted than any one narrative can capture.
Yeah.
So this deep dive, it's definitely given us a lot to think about. And it's clear this story is not, it's not over. Not by a long shot. We'll keep following it as it develops. But for now, what are some key takeaways our listener can walk away with?
Well, I think the biggest one is that, you have to be an active participant in the information landscape. Like, don't just passively consume everything you see and hear. Question it. Analyze it. Try to find different perspectives, because there's always more to the story than meets the eye.
It's true. This whole situation, it's a good reminder that we all have a role to play in shaping these narratives that define our world. It's a call to be more mindful, more discerning, and more engaged, with the information that we're constantly being bombarded with. Thanks for joining us on this deep dive. Until next time, stay curious.